Hey, well, hello everybody. This is Philip Martin, and this is on film on video for October 22nd, 2021. And we're still here, still in the studio. Uh, no plans on going back to the office, at least not for me, which makes it easier for me to do things like this because I don't know what they're doing down there. Maybe they're getting us some cool, setup down there. We can broadcast from there and record all this stuff. And maybe we'd have some help doing that. I want to really thank the people who do help put this out because I am a total klutz at this. I'm terrible at editing. I screw things up all the time, and you don't see them because they fix them, and that's great. Thank you, Nick, very much for that. What we're going to talk about this week, well, we're going to talk a little bit about what's exciting and what's coming out. Dune finally hits theaters today, well, Friday, and I guess it's also on HBO Max, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me from a marketing standpoint, but then again, a few months ago, movie theaters were pretty much closed, and people weren't going to theaters. I think people are starting to go to theaters now. I think that the success of Halloween Kills, which even though it was on one of the streaming services, I think Peacock, I think that's the NBC one, right? I think that's showing that in the Bond film, No Time to Die, I think they're showing that people are willing to go back to the theaters. We're willing, whether we should be or not, we're willing to put this aside and start resuming our normal lives. I know how it is. I mean, I still ride around, I still have a mask in my car, but I get out of the car and I forget my mask, and I sort of like catch myself. Do I go back and get it, or do I go in? And if you go into a store now, in Arkansas anyway, and this speaks of Arkansas, it's not of any place else, no one's going to say anything to you if you don't have a mask on. Because, the chances are that if you don't have a mask on, maybe you're trying to make some sort of point or something. And I'm not trying to do that at all. I just forgot my mask. So sometimes I'll go back and get the mask, and sometimes, I admit it, I've been in the liquor store without my mask on. I do stay away from people. I am, vaccinated, and as soon as I can get a booster, I'm going to get a booster, okay? I'm going to do that. I believe this is a real crisis, a real epidemic, and it's caused pain to people close to me. It's just that we're in a situation now where it sort of feels like, once again, it's letting up, and we're relaxing a little bit. And I don't know whether that means that maybe it really is time to relax, or maybe it's, just another, Indian summer kind of thing, and it's going to come back and hit us again. I sure don't know. Anyway, but it seems to me like the theaters are where the action is now, and that's where everybody is going. I mean, I haven't seen Halloween Kills because it's a scary movie, and I don't have anything against scary movies. I'm just not a huge fan of them. I am a fan of David Gordon Green, especially his earliest work, and I'm sure that he gets tired of people saying that. He's a very skillful filmmaker. He can do pretty much what he wants. And therein lies the kind of interesting dynamic there, because, he's a good craftsman. So he can turn out these, commercial films, and I'm sure part of him really loves these commercial films. And I think that a lot of the old, George Washington and All the Young Girls and things like that, and Undertow, all those kinds of films, in part they were made from poverty because he didn't have the resources as disposal to make the films he can make now. But I also think that now there's more pressure to have a return on investment, and it's the old thing, it's sort of like film is an art, but it's an art that's meant to be consumed by a whole bunch of people, and therefore it involves compromise, and it also involves collaboration, which inherently involves compromise. But the best movies, will die on this mountain. The best movies are generally big Hollywood movies that appeal to a lot of people, that also have something mysterious about them, something like Nomadland, like Minari, something that, challenges us beyond the normal monster movie dynamic or the action movie dynamic. And it's not just who's going to get the girl and how will they get together. It's something more than that. And I think that, the Oscars kind of take tacit notice of that, even though I don't think they identify the best films. I think they do identify some good Hollywood films. Maybe not the best Hollywood films even, but yeah. But that's for me. And that's a film critic's point of view. And I'm talking about, film. I think we all kind of are film critics in that we've all seen a lot of movies. And we all have a way, we all have an understanding of how they work and what they attempt to do and how things fit together. Everybody can go frame a shot now. Everybody knows how to do that. Documentary filmmakers can hand out cameras to random people, and the random people are going to come back with not only usable footage, but sometimes really good footage. The late D.A. Pennebaker was somebody who was famous for that, at least especially in his later films, his music films, when he would give cameras to members of the audience so they could shoot the performance for him, and he would stitch it all together, edit it. I mean, some of this stuff is just, we know it because we've watched so many movies. We don't have a name for it. We don't have the vocabulary. We don't have the theoretical underpinnings to put it together maybe, but we all instinctively know what a movie looks like and what works in a movie and what doesn't work in a movie. So we're all kind of in position to be critical if we start thinking about that. Now, I think one of the problems we have as a culture is that we are too accepting of the stuff that's shoved in front of us. And this is a really interesting thing because I just wrote about this Michael Copping book. And Michael Coppy, who's my new friend in California, he wrote this book. I'll get it. Hang on. I wrote about this like last Sunday. Words and Music into the Future, which, it's a good book, and I wrote all about it. But what is basically Michael's point of view, and this is Michael's album, by the way, which you would have to order somehow, find it, and it's only one disc, but it's a lot of text. It's a lot of text. See, that's the kind of guy he is. That's the kind of albums I would make if I had unlimited resources, and because when I write a song, and I'm sorry if this is getting off the movie track, but I'm also a songwriter, and when I write a song, sometimes I need footnotes because I write songs about Frank Lloyd Wright and Edwin Cheney. And if you know that story, you know it. If you don't know that story, don't worry about it or Google it or find out about, the Taliesin fire. And, so yeah, that's the kind of stuff I would do. But anyway, what Michael was pointing out was that, you listen to these pop songs, and a lot of them, even these venerated songs that we talk about a lot as really great works of art, don't make a whole lot of sense. The lyrics really aren't very good. They're not, and the point of lyrics and songwriting is to make this, it's what the song's about. It literally is what the song's about. Now, I'm a little bit more forgiving than Michael, and then I can accept that imagistic, lyrics and lyrics that evoke a feeling, like the Bernie Taupin stuff that sort of, sounds profound, but really isn't. Take me to the pilot, I am but a stranger. I mean, this stuff doesn't make any sense, any literal sense, but if you use it as a conduit for the emotive flow of the singer's voice, okay? Now, I'm going to get this back to the movies, in that movies can be incoherent and still be wonderful. And some of the best movies are incoherent and wonderful. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Spring Breakers. It's a fever dream. Movies can work like dreams, and they can have this own sort of dream logic. But they can also be very, very overt and very, very dumb. And we've accepted that as kind of this American kabuki where we play along with the blockbusters when they're being dumb, because we know that, we recognize that as a movie. Not because we necessarily need the cues they give us, not because we couldn't figure out what was going on if they didn't say these obvious overt things and hammer these things home to us. The whole thing is, American films go, here comes a joke. Here's a joke. Did you just get the joke? You know, I mean, that's sort of the way they proceed. And thank heaven not all of them. I'm just saying that there's generally a lack of nuance. And one of the reasons there's a lack of nuance is because nowadays, movies have to appeal to a worldwide audience. Especially the bigger the movie, the wider the appeal has to be for it to be an effective product, in that it will make money for the people who made it. You understand? It's like the goal of the film is not to be artistically rewarding necessarily, though I think a lot of the people working on the movies, that's exactly what they want to do. But again, you know, they're invested. These are all commercial ventures. People invest in them. People expect to make money on them. So the way you make money on something, you make it appeal to a whole lot of people. And if you're trying to make it appeal to people in Moline, Illinois, and in Shanghai, then you've got a really wide, there's a lot of stuff you can't be specific about. And the specificity is what really hits us in art, because it's like, that's when we say, oh, that's like us. Oh, what was the film? Oh, Ferrari. Yes, the Iranian filmmaker, Asghar Farhadi. A friend of mine who's not a movie critic, who's a lawyer, was over here a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the Arkansas Cinema Society and the movies they were showing, and I told him, you know, I said, well, you know, it's great. The Jessica Chastain thing is great, and this is great. The Becoming Cousteau thing, which is great, and the film is really fun. And I think the film is in theaters now, but not in Arkansas, which is kind of bad, because I think we're going to run a interview with the director, Liz Garbus, this week, if we have room, and wait for the film to open for the review to run. Because, you know, but anyway, you can seek this film out, Becoming Cousteau, and that's great. But the film I was really excited about was Ferrari's The Hero, which showed on the last night, the Sunday night, of the Arkansas Cinema Society. He goes, yeah, that guy, that's the guy that did A Separation. I go, yes, A Separation, Salesman. And he goes, you know, I love that guy's movies. And when I watch that guy's movies, even though they're about Iranians, modern day Iranians, in Tehran, it makes me understand that those guys are just like me. They've got the same sort of concerns, the same sort of problems, and they go through the same BS on a daily basis. The banalities of life really don't change that much, whether you're a pygmy tribesman or, you know, a master of the world working on Wall Street. I mean, you still have these little annoying things that you have to deal with every day. And a good movie makes us feel more like each other, which is the opposite of politics. Politics, you try to divide people into, you know, you strategically cut people up into groups so they can, you know, fight it out among themselves and leave your guys unscathed. But anyway, so the movies ought to be the antidote to politics in that sentence. We all ought to watch more movies and less cable news. But anyway. So the movies are kind of back. I mean, and I think of movies as things you go to the theater to see. I still think of it that way. I mean, I know that you have movies on Netflix. I know you have movies on HBO, Showtime, those things. But I really still think that the thing. But I also kind of think that maybe the best stuff the best stuff for, let's say, people like us. Because that's always, a critic is always writing for this mythical people like us, people who get it, you know? If you're watching this, you get it. If you read my stuff, you get it. You're in the club already. So the thing is, it's all for people like us, not for everybody. But the best stuff is this long-form, episodic drama stuff that's going on TV. And I'm watching a couple of them right now that aren't all that great, but they're still great. I'm watching American Rust on Showtime, and I don't have the screeners. I mean, I could get these screeners, but they're so hard. So I don't want to work that hard. I mean, just, they're sending them to somebody. I don't know who's getting them. I'm not getting them. But anyway, it's just so good. And not that the story or the writing's that good. It's just that you've got this 7, 8 episodes to marinate in the characters and to, you know, understand what the dynamic is in this little southwestern Pennsylvania, you know, city, where the refineries have gone, and it's sort of like eviscerated the city. There's no hope in these places. It's a lot like a lot of places in the Delta, only the industry of the Delta was different than the industry in southwestern Pennsylvania. And Jeff Daniels, who's been a good actor for a long time. In fact, one of the films I want to show in our private, you know, movie night, I haven't got a copy of it. I don't know why. Is Something Wild. His version of Something Wild. I just need to grab them. Ray Liotta's in that, and you know, I just need to get a hold of that and watch it again. It's a Jonathan Demme film, and I've been in Dumb and Dumber, which I don't really, you know, much care for, but you know, that's neither here nor there. But he really sort of had a renaissance when he went onto TV and did what was the network show? See, I should prepare. I didn't know I was going to go down this road. But he was this anchor man on the cable news network. And then he was in the Twin Towers, Looming Towers, and now he's in this show. Oh, he was also in. He was a John Brown type figure in Godless. He wasn't John Brown, but he was this crazy bearded outlaw in this Western, and that was great. And he's one of those people that if you saw him on the street, I mean, you might say, "Oh, that's Jeff Daniels," but you know, if he wasn't a movie star, you wouldn't think anything about him. He doesn't have anything particularly striking about him. He looks like a lot of people, and yet there's a talent there, and it's hard to identify exactly what it is because it's not like he does voices. It's not like he transforms himself. But you just believe in him as whoever he is. And for someone like that, they can seem almost negligible in a 90-minute, 2-hour movie where, you know, they're on screen maybe 15, 30 minutes. I don't know what the ratio is or something, but, you know, it's like... but in something like this, where you see him in all these scenes over the course of several weeks, and the whole project is, 8 hours long? I don't know how many episodes are in this. You know, you really sort of seep into that character, and you really start to understand things about him, and you sort of, if you know a little bit about him, which is not something I always recommend. I always kind of think that you don't need to know anything about the artist. You just need to pay attention to the art. But if you know about Jeff Daniels, you know he's a good guitar player, really good guitar player. And, you know, you see a little hint of that here. You know, like there's a scene the other night when he's talking to this guy that he's supposed to kill. He's supposed to murder this guy. And he's kind of killing time with him before, you know, things are supposed to happen. And he asked him about how he likes working there. And the guy says he's a musician, so he doesn't mind working at night. And he goes, "Well, guitar?" And the guy goes, "No, I'm a drummer." But you can just get that because, you know, it's sort of like guitar players like to talk about guitar playing to other guitar players. We like to talk about guitars. It's ridiculous, but that's a little bit of a character thing that fits in there. So it's really interesting. You can sort of custom blend your characters. The other thing that I've been, and I'm just going to end with this because I could go on and on if I start getting on this track. A few years ago, we went to the Savannah. This is actually almost the time we would be going. We're not going this year. But, several years in a row, we went to the Savannah Film Festival, which is at the end of October. And the only reason we go to Savannah is because my mom lives in Savannah, and it's like a really good kind of busman's holiday. I can go to the movies, go to the film festival, and see my mom, and and have that little thing going on. That's a vacation. We're not going this year, but anyway, a few years ago when I was there, one of the things they showed was, and I meant to look this up before I talked about it, but I guess I'll look it up later. This Australian series, Jack Irish, which stars Guy Pearce as this broken down lawyer whose wife was murdered in the very first episode of the series. And, there are two types of Jack Irish products. There are these TV movies that go on for almost 2 hours. And that was the first thing I saw it there. And then there's the hour series. I think it runs 3 seasons. And we're watching it on Acorn. And it's just because Guy Pearce is somebody who you're familiar with. And you're familiar with him through his roles in L.A. Confidential or Two Brothers or whatever you know Guy Pearce from. You just know him as this actor, but you probably don't know him on his own ground, which is like watching an Australian actor act in an Australian series. He's home, and it's really fun to watch him, and it's really, it's number one, the Jack Irish stuff. If you're a fan of detective fiction, it's pretty cool. They're very convoluted plots. The stable of characters are very strong. There's a horse racing subplot through most of these things. And he's got this wonderful, I think he's an Aboriginal actor who's in this series, who's just a fabulously competent, tough guy. And he's an ally of Jack Irish. And he has another guy who's this wonderful, he may have gotten killed in the one I just watched. We don't know yet. Brendan, who's like an ex-client who will now do anything for Jack effing Irish. And it's pretty cool. But you can get pulled into these things in a way that movies are great, but they are what they are. And the more and more I watch these long-form TV things. Now, I don't have as much tolerance for the bad ones. There are bad ones. I like the HBO, oh boy, what's the name of it? The one where they're doing the the Lotus, the White Lotus, but the Hulu thing with Nicole Kidman and Melissa McCarthy. That was fun, but it was fun in a way that you're watching this really embarrassing stuff. Nine Perfect Strangers is the name of it. Not recommending it. Just saying that these things are really, there's something to them. If I was going to be working, if I could work in that sort of industry now, the place to be, I think, and this is an old take. It goes back from The Sopranos through The Wire, through Deadwood. It's this long-form episodic TV that you're running on a premium cable channel like Netflix or HBO. Those things can be really good. But anyway, movies are back. Dune is this week, and I've watched the David Lynch Dune, and I don't know what it was about. I've never been a fan of the novel. I've never read the novel. I don't have any prejudice against it. So, but I'm not so I'm be interested to see what that. And then in a couple weeks, we've got The French Dispatch, the Wes Anderson film. It's opening. You're going to hear a lot about it. It's opening this weekend a lot of places, not here. It's opening November 5th in Arkansas. I'll probably see it next week. which I'm looking forward to. So anyway, I won't keep you any longer. Be good, be safe, and we'll see you at the movies.